Hi everyone. So they told me that I have 7 minutes to talk, and I really like to talk, so I suggest we get started so we can get through everything. I would like to tell you about how I fucked up my first and only startup. At the time I was studying architecture at Bezalel. I thought I wanted to be an architect. I realized mid-degree, actually not. And so I connected with an established startup entrepreneur. And together we went to sell the Dean of Architecture on the idea of a startup architecture course, basically for architecture students who launch a venture together. And through this, Drops was born. It was an application for location-based messaging. Oh, sorry. There we go. So Drops was really about asynchronic communication. So how it works is you send a message to a specific person at a specific location, and only when they physically arrive at the location, you would receive the message. You can think of it almost like digital graffiti. Show you a quick video. Perfect, thanks. See a video a little bit more about Drops. So one of the early wins in the project was that we actually convinced some of the deans from the other departments at Bezalel to give us students to work for us for credits. So we had an amazing team of developers and videographers who were working for us for free, basically. We also convinced the president of Bezalel that they should relinquish any claim to the IP. So that was also a plus. In general, things were really looking up. Sorry, it keeps jumping. Okay, there we go, got it. So some first breaks. It was just really an exciting time. Things were taking off. We got into BABA, the Bezalel Alumni Accelerator program, Business Accelerator. We had a partnership with Batimi Bifnim, the open house festival, and they were going to promote Drops as a location-based treasure hunt and put it in all of their marketing materials. We did our first investor pitch to one of the partners in Gemini Ventures. It was a pretty exciting time. Even the Bezalel PR organization was willing to work for us because they really wanted to show themselves as a technology-oriented school and to kind of showcase the project. So in the blink of an eye, we were getting all of this primetime press, right? We were on Channel 2 on primetime. We had a weekend spread in the Time Out magazine. We had an article of Globes, and we were getting all of these like really flashy titles like an Israeli messaging app that's going to compete with WhatsApp, and never forget milk at the supermarket again, thanks to Drops, because you can send a message there to remind yourself about it. It was because of all of this PR, also, we were, because of all of this PR, we were getting thousands of downloads a day, actually, which was insane. At one point, we actually surpassed Twitter in the rankings of how many downloads we were getting. In fact, things were going so well that we started working on a spin-off project called Spacebook, which was going to take all of the tons of data we had from our Drops users and use this data to create sentiment analysis about hyperlocal places as a tool for architects and urban planners. Pop, that is the sound of the bubble bursting. So it wasn't like a slow decline, it was more like a freaking train wreck. So there we go. We had already been accepted to present at the World Mobile Conference, which is an international tech conference in Barcelona. So we kind of got on a plane and went and tried to speak to these investors and explain away the failure of our app. With things like, it's just the first iteration, we have to release it again, or it's still early to have conclusive data on user retention, but I will tell you we've seen some interesting organic international growth. Thanks, Mom, for downloading on the East Coast. Really appreciate that. Our reviews in the App Store also were pretty bad. We were eating up the battery life of users who downloaded the app. We saw reviews like, really great idea, unfortunately this app doesn't work. And one of my personal favorites is, I can't log in. Wasn't going very well. Wasn't a good time for Drops. But what made it worse actually was the team dynamic. Because as we kind of started seeing the potential of having an investor, we said, actually we need to transfer from being a startup school project to being a real company. And if we're a real company, we need to have a CEO, right? This was a point of contention, to put it lightly. The conversation went like this. I want to be the CEO. I also want to be the CEO. But I have more experience. I should be the CEO. But you don't have the right kind of experience. You need to have experience in business and development and sales to be the CEO. So I won't throw anyone under the bus, but I will say there was a point in the lifetime of this project where multiple team members were giving out business cards saying that they were the CEOs of the project. Mind you, we were a team of 4. Not going so well. What actually made this even worse was the fact that the semester had ended, right? So everyone got our grades and we no longer had developers working for us for free. That combined with the fact that 50% of our team went to semester abroad student exchange, and we're kind of spread out all over the world. So ultimately, if I try and kind of look at what went wrong, I think we just approached it like a student project and not like an actual company. And so as soon as we hit the first speed bump, the whole thing kind of went up in smoke. So what can we learn from this? Well, what I learned, first of all, is that it's really important to define the roles in the team quite early. Another thing that might seem obvious is don't found a technology company with a team of 4 architecture students. As talented and fantastic as they may be. Also, there is such a thing as launching too early, right? So we could have spent a little bit more time doing QA, testing for bugs, really making sure the apps were more polished before we released them. And we also didn't time the release very well because we launched the iOS app, did lots of PR, and then launched the Android app. So in retrospect, probably not the best way to go. And finally, I would say try and fail elegantly, which, when you know that you're, and I say when you fail because ultimately, I think anyone who does anything amazing or tries to do something amazing is going to fail at some time, and try and fail elegantly, and really just admit your failures and thank people who helped you on the way. Don't try and just brush everything under the rug and fall off the face of the planet because you're ashamed of the fact that your project didn't work out. So life after failure, it's not so bad. I'm still alive. And in fact, this was one of the projects that led me to start introducing myself as an architect, working in the intersection of architecture and technology. I also, since then, like they mentioned, thank you, Nitzan, won an award from NASA for my proposal for 3D printing houses on Mars. And actually, drops is one of the things that led me to my first job outside of architecture, working as a technology analyst in a venture capital firm. Today, I manage JNext, which is the High Tech and Entrepreneurship Fund for the Jerusalem Development Authority. And actually, very recently, I started teaching an architecture and technology course at Bezalel, but I'm still missing a few students for registration, so that might be a failure story for next time. Keep your fingers crossed for me. But what I would really like everyone to take away from this talk is that I hope you have many glorious fuck-ups, because if you have fuck-ups, it means that you had enough chutzpah to really try and do something. So thank you.
Any questions? Shailot?
I think virtual reality or smart cities.
How do you think you could incorporate more women in high tech?
Good one.
So I worked in venture capital in Israel today. It's 4% women in the venture capital industry. I think I worked there for about 4 months before I was not the only woman in the room. It starts early. It starts with STEM. It starts, I think, with education at home and in school, just encouraging women to study STEM. I think that really helps as far as creating the platform. And I also think men have a part in the solution in being welcoming to women in business and being supportive of women in business, and particularly in the technology industry.
Last question, if there is one. Yeah?
What is STEM?
STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you very much.